It's been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except all the other forms that have been tried from time to time. So we've been through these, and democracy is the best. It's great. It's built America and other countries to be quite a nice place to live. But is it the end result?
Got a great talk for you coming up. Chris Rufer, owner and founder of Morningstar Tomato, is going to talk with us about the new frontier of human respect. But I also want you to pay attention to this for two different reasons. One, what you're about to hear here. But two, one of the things that the Academy is dedicated to is this bubbling up of knowledge. And so often in universities now, the business school is just put off and written off as just being a professional that doesn't have anything to say about the humanities or social sciences. It's just a professional school, right? Your PhDs in philosophy and econ, they got all that to say. And I think that's dead wrong, because what you're here to hear is a man who's going to present to you this theory, and God, listen up, this is pretty good, and he runs his company based on it. So this isn't just, this is actually theory that's going to be put into action. So without further ado, I would like us all to welcome Mr. Chris Rufer up to speak. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I prefer to talk like Ryan does and walk all over the place, and I can speak to this impromptu, and I have before, but not too often. I operate a business, so I'm a business person. I'm not a professor or lecturer. But I would prefer to give it to, just like Ryan did, and use these as prompts and talk about it. But I perceive that the audience might be more intellectual and more serious and more interested in these type of things. So I may read a lot more than I'd like to, but I want to get it so it's logical. I don't skip the stuff that when I talk impromptu, then I forgot to talk about that. So forgive me for that, but it seems to be from the first lecture and the responses that my guess was true, that you're a more rigorous intellectual group than what I might usually talk to. With Ryan's talk on classical liberalism, I will kind of go like this and touch some points that Ryan touches on, because for quite some time I consider myself a classical liberal, and I don't anymore. But there's nothing about what Ryan described, nor I thought Ryan was going to go through another set of 10 principles that I've seen on more of the rule of law and property rights, things like that. So he went through a different set of 10 than I'm used to classical liberal folks going through. So I don't object to any of the things that Ryan said, except one. So you'll maybe recognize that, and clearly have an exception. So the idea I've got is fairly radical. So most of you will be affronted by a number of things here, perhaps intellectually, but when you get to the end, hopefully you'll see something that you haven't seen before. You recognize a number of things, but the conclusion of it, the heart of it, I don't think has been described before. So what is your fundamental mission in life? What drives all of your actions? You have this drink here. You have 2 drinks. Why did you choose these 2? You're a hog? There was coffee. You had coffee too? Why this versus coffee?
Don't want that caffeine, but I still want to view it.
Okay. And you have a white blouse instead of a black one or a pink one or a yellow one. Why did you choose that? Why did you choose this tie? Why did you choose where you live? Why did you choose your hairdo? What is driving every action that you take from beginning of life to the end of life? Okay, that's good. That's the second. The first answer I get is to be happy. And well, among people like yourselves as well, I want to be a really great engineer. I want to change the world. But fundamentally, was that what it was when you were 3 years old? No, it wasn't. And the second one I get really is to serve God, you might say. So, but why did you choose the coffee instead of the zero?
Economically viable.
And economics has driven you to be happy, right? So I think this goes along with Ryan, but I think people's fundamental mission in life is to be happy. And so you're choosing that drink instead of coffee, and you take a lot of things in consideration, and you come down to make a decision because you have to take one action, and you got that. And all the different things, considerations, cost, peer pressure, health, all those things add into these things, and you want to fundamentally be happy. And it's the same thing when you came out of mom's body, and it's the same thing in her last dying day. everything is driven. You fundamentally want to be happy. Your career, why that career? Well, I like that one because of versus another one. So I start with a question when I talk about and I consider this social philosophy, so how we interact together with each other. So I start with this question: under what understanding should we relate to each other, which will maximize our individual and others' happiness? So what is that social understanding? Try to answer the last question that Ryan brought up. So society's been through many social and political organizations and systems: tribal leaders, feudalism, democracy, communism. So we've been through all these social systems. Winston Churchill, how many here have you ever heard of Winston Churchill? I think at least half have got to, but without Winston Churchill, I don't think so. England probably would have been Nazis today. So he was a World War II leader and politician. He, a brilliant guy, wrote many, many books, dozens, I think. He said this: indeed, it's been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except to all the other forms that have been tried from time to time. So he's clearly sitting there saying there's something better. So I'm going to argue that for a governance concept that I call of human respect. So we've been through these, and democracy is the best. It's great. It's built America and other countries to be quite a nice place to live. But is it the end result? So we think this is the way it is, right? Well, what was it 2,000 years ago in Greece? Slavery. Common deal, right? I think about a third, somebody correct me a little bit, more on. A quarter to a third of the people living in Greece back 2,000 years ago were slaves. Common deal. No big deal. It's the way the world works. And even when America started, what was it then? You still had slaves couldn't vote, women couldn't vote, and people that didn't own property. I don't know whether they couldn't vote or not, but it was close. So these common understandings of how the world works do change. So is democracy the end result here? So I think there's another concept on what would be better than democracy. So to understand this philosophy is quite simple, actually. There's one key definition and 3 axioms. But Ryan's introduced the concept and discussing use the word principle quite often. So what's a definition of a principle? What's a principle? Obviously, Ryan uses it so much that he must have used it with understanding that everybody understands that word. What's it mean, a principle? In the dictionary, and he'll say it's fundamental ideas from which you live your life. So I'm going to describe two different descriptions of a principle. So one is a personal principle. And I'll propose that most classical liberals, the principles they describe are personal principles. They're statements that they make because they believe it's good. Foundation to live by, either personally or for other people. So what are some common principles that you'd call personal principles? So you mentioned about religion. There's different personal principles, right? Well, there's Muslims over here, and you got the Jews over here, and the Catholics over here, and there's different principles by which they live, right? But so a principle is if this, then that. There's a relationship. If this happens, that will happen. In our atmosphere, I experienced the second largest rainfall yesterday driving from St. Louis up here. I called my wife, says the only other time I've seen rain fall this hard was when I was in Indiana. Well, I'm in Illinois, it's about the same. So when you get a certain temperature in the air, there's a certain amount of humidity, moisture in the air, you'll get a condensation. The vapor will change phases to water. It's heavier. It falls. If it gets colder and colder and colder, what happens to that thing called water? Turns to ice at a specific temperature every time. So a natural principle is such that if this, then that. Gravity, how many understand gravity? If I let go, what happens? It goes down, falls. We call it fall. Why? It's called gravity. Who knows the formula? Nobody knows the formula? Heck, you had to have some physics at some point. It was very simple. You have two bodies, and you multiply the mass of those two bodies, Earth and Sun, or you in the table. You multiply the mass of the two bodies and divide by the square of the distance between them. If the distance between them is 2 feet, well, that's the square of the distance is 4. If it's 10 feet apart, then it's divided by 100, and there's a constant. So Newton came up with this. Pretty complicated, huh? It works everywhere, all the time, as far as we know, across the universe. Einstein made he came a different principle from a different direction, and it works better than Newton's when you approach the speed of light. And how many of you travel at 186,000 miles per second? So it is better. GPS has to use some of Einstein's formulas to make some corrections, or GPS really wouldn't work, because you got a beam going way up quite a distance and it's coming back down quite a distance. So there's a little correction factor there that you have to use his formulas. So natural principles are different than personal principles. Okay, so this is very, very important here, and this is the key to what I might want to talk about here. I have only 3 axioms here. So the first one is people want to be happy. So as an individual, people want to be happy. Call it more pleasure, less pain. Call it living your values, which Ayn Rand would say. Live a life of well-being. Any other descriptions for what I use happiness, but it's an all-encompassing long-term point of view. Some of you are in finance, right? Or economics. So discounted cash flows. Have you ever heard of that? If you're in finance, there's a discounted flow of your happiness. So you're going to go to the dentist and have some pain today, but you're going to feel better in the future. So you value the added value of the future versus the negative of the pain today. You take that in consideration, but it's a large view of happiness. So individually, you want to be happy. From a social perspective, though, how do people relate to each other? What can one person do to another person that would definitely decrease their happiness? I resolved to this. So human happiness, harmony, prosperity will always decrease as persons experience the initiation of violence or theft of their property or time through force or fraud. So it starts there with this natural principle. So this is like gravity. So all societies are based on certain values and morals. And do we add it together? If you find commonality, you have what's called a culture. But understanding this fact of life, then how do you act? Because, okay, fine, there's the gravity. So what? You understand how this world works in some way, but so what? What does it mean? So it gives you some direction on how to act. So how many willingly jump off this table? One at least. Come on. How many can jump off this table? No problem. Now, go to the 1 story up, and then go to 10 stories. Everybody understood what gravity is because everybody understood what's going to happen here, right? But you didn't understand the formula. When Newton pointed out the formula, that opened up a lot of understanding on how things work. So understanding electromagnetism, how do you think the computers and all the software that we use, the hardware, where does that come from? Building the chips and the understanding of electricity and how it works and magnetism, that opened up a whole world for us. Physics opens up a huge world if you know how it can work. Once you understand how it really works, it's very powerful. So understanding this, to the degree it's true, and you can buy into this, what does it say as far as your actions? How would you act? You're not going to jump off the 20th floor given the understanding of gravity, whether you understand the formula or not. The formula will tell you exactly what speed you will hit that cement and exactly the time it'll take for you to hit the cement. So what do we do here? So there's a corollary to this, which I call a moral principle of human respect, and it's this. So to advance happiness for myself and others, I will not initiate violence or theft against others in any aspect of my life. How many here actually act with this principle in mind? That you do not violate other people's bodies and you do not steal from them. Don't be embarrassed if you don't, but I'll ask it the other way. How many of you believe in using violence against other people and stealing their stuff? So if you're embarrassed to answer this question, how many here actually believe this and you act this way? How many? No, I like to. How many live with these principles of not using violence or theft in the aspects of your life? No. How do you see hands? So only half of you. The rest of you actually believe in force and in stealing. So to summarize, we've identified a simple relationship known to everyone that violence and theft decreases human happiness. But in addition, that the impact on human happiness is always the same, such that it's impossible for wishes, votes, or declarations of any kind to ever negate the impact of the actions on human beings. So this is social and moral philosophy, not a political philosophy, but it has political ramifications. So let's move on. What is the definition of a state? India, United States, Nebraska, Illinois. What's the definition of a state? So the definition of a state is this geographical area where some people have a monopoly on violence. That's different than a government. So a government is a description of how the state is going to be administered. So a government can be communist government, a dictatorship, democracy, feudalism, kings. It's a description how this state is going to be administered. Just what are the rules of the game here? And here in America, okay, we have this democracy. We've got there's checks and balances. We have Congress. We have an executive branch. We have a judicial branch. And we have an understanding. These are the rules set up by in our Constitution. Other people have other constitutions. So the government is not. It's that set of understandings on how we're going to play this game of violence. Because again, I don't like the PowerPoints in essence. They just, people. In college, at some point, I decided not to take notes, stopped taking notes, and started to listen. Because, the books and whatnot are always there. So I think I got more out of it when I started paying attention to the discussion. So the government sets a set of rules defined by different folks, different governments, but it's all structured around this concept of the state. Politics is different. Politics, the way I describe it, politics is how you obtain power. So in a feudalism and a kingdom, how will you obtain power? It's called what's called the lucky sperm bank. So if you're the oldest son or the daughter, like Queen Elizabeth, whatnot. So you had men and women, but it's just family. So dictators select themselves. We have a system in democracy by which we select those that hold the power. So there's state, it's a concept, government's a concept, politics is a concept. This is a big point right here that I'd like to make, that these are abstractions. They're not people. How many abstractions can walk and talk? They don't. They're thinking patterns. They're concepts you have in your mind. They're not things. So when you talk about government doing something, that's false. Government cannot do anything. We think of it as a thing. It's not a thing. It's a thing. It's a concept. It's an abstraction. And abstractions do not walk or talk. So when we say the government's going to give me something, what does that really mean? What are you really saying? Through the concept of government, which is the use of force as necessary, if necessary, to obtain something. So actually, when you're going to get something from government, you're getting something from your fellow citizens, right? You're taking it from fellow citizens. The state has nothing. Who can walk around? If you were to walk around and point, put your finger on the state, where would you go? Who would you touch? What would you touch? You're touching land, right? Okay. Is that government? It's supposed to be ours. Yeah, walk on federal land, government property. Yeah, you know what the definition of property is? Something of value which you have the exclusive disposition of. You can use it, you can sell it, you can rent it, you can destroy it, you can give it away. You have the ultimate disposition. The unilateral disposition is that that's your property, private property, your property. So federal land, whose property is that? The director of that land. I'm the director of Yosemite. It's his property or her property. So if you understand these two concepts, that violence always and theft always decreases human happiness, and you understand this understanding of concept of the state, you cannot have a state and maximize human happiness. It is impossible. You cannot. It's impossible. If you wish to maximize human happiness, just what I said, you got a fact of life that the state uses as necessary violence. Every law is backed up with a gun, is it not? They pass a law. You ride a motorcycle. Anybody here like motorcycles? I've only ridden a motorcycle once in my life, but you have to wear a helmet. You have to wear a helmet. And if you don't, the government comes and gives you a ticket, and you either pay the ticket, you don't want to pay the ticket, what happens? They send you another note and another note. And pretty soon you come to the judge. If you don't come to the judge, they go get you to come to the judge. How do they get you? You willing to walk into prison voluntarily? No, you have to have the threat or use of physical force to get you to move. So that's my point here. If you look at natural principles and you can understand how humans relate to each other, and you understand the concept of a state, you can't have a state maximize human happiness. You can have a state, and we obviously do, right? We're all existing, and pretty good in America. But what's the real truth, and what actually would maximize human happiness? And what causes all the friction? And Ryan pointed that out. All the friction comes from forcing other people. You like yellow? Why don't we get together and other people, if we vote, yellow is the only color you can wear. Obviously, other people don't wear yellow here. Maybe some people do. But if we pass the law, how happy are you going to be? You got to wear yellow, not blue. You got to wear yellow, not white. Increase your happiness or not? And the rest of us going to get there, and we like strawberry ice cream. What do you like? You like vanilla? No. We're passing a law. Only strawberry ice cream. I'm using a facetious example, but it's not that. The helmets are right there. So now, I'm sorry, there's no vanilla. There's only strawberry. Are you happy? It's not maximizing your happiness when you decrease choice. So it gets back to Ryan mentioned about freedom being the ultimate thing. I'd say that human happiness is my presumption. So happiness, maximum happiness, part of an individual, results from them having freedom to choose, from them being able to choose what they want, what acts they want to take. To have the freedom, to be able to choose, you need freedom. And I'll get to it later, what your ultimate source of freedom is. So I don't know where I'm at here. So what's going on here? Democracy is obviously the best thing there is, the ultimate thing there is in this world. What's going on? How is it that we have this system whereby some people, and again, it's not government, it's some individual people, our citizens, our fellow citizens are telling us, this is how you're going to live your life. 2,000 laws introduced in California legislature last year, 800 passed. Different ways for this group of people. I think this, again, government's an abstraction. It's people who actually cause these things. These people here, no matter what it is, in California, maybe it's 150, and what's in the U.S., 435 plus 100 senators and a president, and then, of course, the majority vote there, they can pass a law, which they just did, right? Big law. Okay, so those folks, half of them, that's what's that, 200, 280 or something, people can now dictate to the 340 million people in this country how they're going to relate to each other. So how is it? People telling other people what to do under the threat of violence. And does that maximize happiness? I say no. Let me ask you, who can represent all of your values? So how can anybody else, let alone a group, represent you? It is impossible. You cannot have representative anything because you are the only one that represents yourself. And that's what I'm getting at. Okay, what I'm talking about here is where things should be. There's a truth. You don't have to agree with it. You can agree with something else. I'm promoting that respecting each other as individual human beings is the way to maximize human happiness. And you can shoot people and you can steal from them. It doesn't prevent people from doing that. But if you understand really where things should be, what's the underlying principle, it's very powerful. I operate a business, and I'm very glad I had an degree and education in economics. I was at UCLA when it was like Chicago West. Remember Thomas Sowell? He was my labor professor. So maybe I got schooled into this. I never considered myself politically. My parents were not political. I didn't go into college being political. But you go to college, you start talking, right? So I just found myself after college. What is that thing called? Libertarian. So that's me. So what's going on with how are we? I call it suckered into. Where do we get this now? We're all bought into this system of democracy, or another one. I don't know. Maybe some of you are queens here. I'm not sure, future queens or kings, or something, and you believe in a different system. That's fine. But from what I'm promoting here, so we haven't been convinced that when we can remove the actual decision to the action. So I want to steal from that person over there, and I won't do it because that's not my principles. But if we can somehow believe that now I hire you to steal from the other person, well, then I can argue I didn't do it, right? So we've been trained into a thought process whereby if we have majority vote, it's okay. Whatever the majority agrees with, well, now they can do anything they want to the minority. I'm just saying this does not maximize human happiness. I don't believe in any government whatsoever. I don't believe in coercion. So when I talk to people about government, I don't believe in coercion because government is coercion. Correct. I don't believe in coercion. I don't believe that violence or theft improves human happiness. I believe it destroys human happiness. That's it. We can get to that. But bottom line is you understand the concept here, the concept of gravity. You understand that. Now you can see how things work. And you can now, instead of put your thought into how do I trick other people into electing me to be a power holder, you can start thinking about how we can solve problems without using violence and theft. Or you can start thinking productively about how to solve a problem once you understand the core issue, the core principle about how human beings can maximize their happiness. Would you steal from your neighbor? How about you? I go around the room. How many people here can steal from their neighbors or another person? Okay, right. This is such a core belief in society that you don't initiate force against others and you don't steal. It's initiate. But what's not understood is, bottom line is that there's a principle that's embedded in human nature in our genes that says that'll never improve happiness. Ever. Ever. So that's my point. So what's going on is, now you wouldn't steal from there, but would you go to, I think I had some here. So I had these neighbors here. And I say, would Luke steal from Hannah? Well, no. Well, what if, would Luke go over and steal from Polly? No. But Luke would be, let me back up. So would Luke go over to Polly to steal from Hannah for Luke? Would you ask your other neighbor to steal for you? Well, I get laughs. No. Let me go through it. But we go over and Polly's now a politician. And Polly says, I think we should just take from Hannah to give to Luke. Now, if they're a politician, okay. And now if you get enough people to vote for Polly to steal from Hannah, that's okay. I got it. The question is what to deal with it. How do you deal with that? And I'll be happy to talk about that when we finish up here quickly. But yes, these things do happen. What's the most effective way to deal with that is the question. What's the most effective way to deal with that? Okay, let me quickly try to describe this. You get two people, one person, split them in half. Not literally, okay? Yeah, they have the same intellect, same physique, same capabilities, same everything, okay? This person over here, they're both masons. Masons, they know how to build deal with rocks and build chimneys and fences and everything else. This mason over here works in a system that if they do a poor job, the wall falls down. It's falling down. It's very quickly falling down. But they get to continue working on other jobs. This person over here, the same person, they do a great job. But the job was budgeted at $20,000. They spent $30,000. Well, they just get the other $10,000. They can just get it, take it from the customer. And they continue building because they can just build. They build good stuff. They just take whatever money they want. This mason over here works in a different system. They do a bad job. Their wall's falling down, chimney's cracking. What happens to them? They don't get another job. What happens if they do a great job, but they spent $30,000, but they contracted with you for $20,000, and they got $20,000, but they spent $30,000. What happens to that person? They lose their job or they lose their business, right? This is working in a system of government. This is working in private enterprise. My question is, who's going to do a better job? Who's going to work harder? Which one? This one or this one's going to work harder, pay attention. Job's not done at 5 o'clock. They work till 9 at night. This person goes home at 5 o'clock and say, well, we just didn't have time. I'll finish tomorrow. Who's going to work harder, more intentfully? This one, okay? Now ask yourself the question, which job that, quote, government does, remember government's abstraction doesn't do anything, but what job that these people in the government system do that is not done in private enterprise, and also recognize that this person in government is a person with capabilities. Tell me what job is done here that's not capable of being done over here. Give me one.
There's something.
That's a judge. We have judges called arbitrators. Same thing, and most of them are retired judges. The ones over here are, yes, but they don't have to be. They're providing a service. So how about teaching? What are all the jobs that the government does? Teaching. Private people do that. How about fixing roads? How about building roads? How about police? We have private police. You tell me one job that can't be done over here in this system here. None. We can get to that, okay? It gets more complicated, more involved, but we can have that discussion too. It's good. Private justice system is my favorite discussion. So you got agency, okay? So I went through that. How you do things. When you look at, okay, how the heck are we going to have any food without slaves in Greece? How is that ever going to happen? That was the mindset in Greece, and it was a mindset in America and all the other, virtually all other countries for eons. How would we possibly have this happen? Oh, nobody can answer that. Well, I'm asking you to think about how do you answer things, how do you get things done in a system whereby individuals can work together with human respect? So that's my question. Okay, so Ryan had a quadrant. I've got a quadrant too. So similar concepts on how to do here. We'll try to separate your personal values from your political ethics. So what are your personal values? And conservatives tend to have, Jonathan Haidt, as a social psychologist, works through. Conservatives tend to be much more respectful for authority, tradition, sanctity than, quote, liberals. But they're personal values, right? And liberals tend to be more open to experience. Have you ever heard the term hippies? Like Berkeley in the 1960s, okay? In the 70s, I was a short hair hippie, okay? I had 3 years of French because you had to have that in high school. I was a cow town. There were 8 or 10 people in our class of French in a cow town, right, in Central California. 4 of them named Chris. 2 of them valedictorian types, and then there's me. There's no way. I took Italian 1. I got a D in that. I'm never going to pass. Yeah, because they had to have either the 4th year of French or 2 years of another language. So 4 years of French, the 4th year of French 4 at UCLA, with me coming from Cowtown, no way. So I took Italian 1, couldn't do it. So I formed with another person an organization on campus called Concerned Students for Meaningful Educational Policy, and we wiped out the requirement. We were able to get the requirement for a foreign language cut out of the requirement to graduate. Academic sense, pretty big deal to university. I know you go to university, it's a pretty big deal. So I did some different things. Your personal values and your political affiliation. So your personal values are that the liberals are a little more, not that much more caring for other people, like, you really care for you, the poor and this and that. A little more, not that much more than conservatives, but a little more. So there's different personal values. Religion, a lot of different personal values. Now you have political affiliation, or your social ethics. What are your social ethics? There's 2 ways to get something from somebody else. You can do what? I want your phone. How can I get it? I can take it, or we can trade, right? So you have a voluntary trade, or you have coercion, force, stealing. 2 ways. So I remember about 150 people at our company, I threw that up there, and there was 2% that said, stealing. Whether they read the question wrong or whether they believed in that, I don't know, but it was 98% to 2. So 98% people will say, if they just ask them, how do you relate to other human beings? Through persuasion versus coercion. So if you can separate those out, then what are yours? I'm not going to ask you, but you choose. So you get a quadrant. This is my quadrant. Got it, Ryan? Well, you paying attention to the quadrant? I got a quadrant too. I pay attention to yours. It's not as complicated as yours. So if you choose here whether you're of liberal or conservative personal values, and then ask what your social ethics are and plot yourself. I'm going to guess that most people are going to fall somewhere in here. What if actually you were here? You're of liberal personal values and your coercion's okay for you. What political it's called a political affiliation quadrant. What party would you affiliate with? A U.S. party. Okay, what if you're conservative and you're okay with coercion? Republican. What if you are liberal and you're okay with persuasion? Democrats over here. Still think so? The Democratic Party platform, I had it read one time, they came up with 250 policies that required coercion to effectuate. The Republicans only had 50. So they believe if you affiliate over here, you believe in coercion. So what over here? Libertarian. What about over here? Libertarian. Okay. Yeah, there's other parties that'll fit in here. Yeah. There's some others. So what you've got is this. Now again, I'll vote this way, but this is my philosophy, because this is the closest, very close. But there's something interesting here when you see it this way. There's two particular things to get out of this. What's really going on is that in politics, in America, in democracy, Republicans are really conservatives. They've just, birds of a feather flock together. So as you grow up, you get your personal values and your families and whatnot, and you kind of float into, then you understand politics. What age were you when you got politics in your mind? 8 years old, 13, 20, I don't know. But then you say, I have these personal values and they fit over here. So you get into politics, who am I going to vote for? Because you got, that's what we're trained to do, go vote for somebody. And so you fall into one of these parties over here, one of these parties, or this one maybe. But what's really going on is Republicans are conservatives trying to convince this group of people who are liberals in their personal values to change their personal values, and vice versa. The Democrats, who are liberals in their personal values, are trying to shove their values onto these other people. When is that going to change? When can you change the introvert to an extrovert? When are you going to change your personal values? Doesn't happen. It's never going to work. This is a constant, what we call a conflict machine. It'll never end. Let's say it's 50-50. And what if 25% of half of these folks were convinced to be conservatives in their personal values? You'd have 25% left as being the most rabid liberals, right? You can have peace? You will never, ever have peace in this system of government and politics. I'm about to finish here. So this is what I call it. That dam is a belief that coercion is good. We can get our way through force, through this concept of government. So what you got is, I call them, if I talk with libertarians, I say, well, those are libertarian folks up there trying to pass. These are all the cracks that libertarians are complaining about. And libertarians are up there trying to fix all the cracks. What happens when you have the same pressure on a faulty dam when you fix one hole? There's more pressure on the same, if not more pressure now, because you're not relieving any pressure for the crack. You've got more pressure. So that's that understanding, and that's what government and the state is. It's this concept that as long as a majority or a dictator or a king can rule other folks, you will always have controversy. You will always have them telling you what to do, restricting your happiness, your choice, which restricts your happiness. So what is the fundamental thing that protects your freedom? And this is a key thing. Your freedom is not inherent in you, in what people call their rights. Your freedom is not inherent in you. Your freedom is dependent on the values of other people. Your freedom is dependent on other people respecting you. That's the core of it. So that's the basis of our freedom. So we should be more interested in other people and their values than screaming about our rights. I don't know how many people here believe their rights will be, let's say the bullet is coming this way. You have your rights though, right? And I pull the trigger, you're going to have my rights? We're interested in not in what's going to happen after your, quote, rights are violated. You're stolen from or you're violated against. That's the secondary. The first thing we should be concerned about is the value system that we have in our culture, that people won't do that. That is the core. The law, okay, the law. That's a piece of paper. Okay, and obviously, I think it was already brought up, you write a law, write something out, how does it protect you? Well, indirectly, no, nothing. So the law doesn't, how many crimes are prevented by police? Private or public? Hardly any, frankly. You can look it up and research this. It's not, the statistics really aren't there because you can't, investigate a negative. It's something that didn't happen. But they're not there. They come after the fact. So our interest really is in respecting each other as human beings and respecting our physical person and our property. So when that is enculturated, we will have greater happiness, more peace, and more prosperity. In America, we have a lot now. Around the country and places, unfortunately, Africa is probably the worst as a continent, but you certainly got North Korea and Venezuela now and other places that this is terrible. So it's a big deal. So I just promote that you think about it and you think about what is the core moral base of our society. And it's not, and again, government's an abstraction. It doesn't do anything, okay? It's only human beings who are incented to act. Those are the only people that count. And everybody in government is a human being, but they're working under a system that believes that coercion is okay. The application of it, well, how would you work without government? Well, let me ask you a few things. Who do you wish to choose what to eat, you or somebody else? Who do you choose? You want to choose what you wear or somebody else?
No, business can definitely.
No, I mean, it's a simple question. Who do you want to dress you or somebody else?
We.
Okay. So who do you want to ask and what health care you want? Who do you want to choose who your doctor is going to be or what they're going to do to your body? You or somebody else?
Well, that depends.
Depends on what? I mean, no, it doesn't depend. You have a choice right here. You want to give your health care to somebody else here, or do you want to choose them or you?
I would like to choose my healthcare as law. Always is within.
I don't know what would be immoral about you choosing. You have this immoral act you're going to choose from. Who do you want to choose your entertainment? Who do you want to choose what car you're going to drive? Or are you going to transport yourself by skateboard, walk, bicycle, or car? You. Who wants to have somebody else to choose how they're going to live their lives? If you don't, you're all anarchists. The anarchy is very simple. Anarchy, without ruler. So if you think anarchists and whatnot, and this term being chaos and whatnot just evolved, the origin of the word is anarchy without ruler. So who do you want to rule yourself? If you choose for you to do it, that's fine. If you want to use government to sanctify your theft or violence against other people, that's your choice. But it's going to minimize human happiness.